And I know you had some stretches where there weren't a ton of days to get full practices in, and even though we're this far into a season, what are the goals? Simple question, but what are the goals on a practice day this far into the year?
Health and sharpness right now. So anybody with anything minor nagging that we can give them some rest, they'll still train off ice, and then make sure we keep our pace and use it so that we have really good energy for our games. It's not about resting them completely. It's about driving them so that we're at the right pace in games.
Any updates on Giovanni Smith?
Nothing. We got a whole bunch of guys off. I'll probably give you a better handle on all of them tomorrow. Some of them are really minor, and I think that they'll be good to go, and other guys will have to probably give them another day.
And on that, though, for Duke, what do you want to see just over these next couple of days leading up to Friday from him?
Nothing. He's been going hard for a while, and he's been out of the gold jersey for a while, so he looks like he's ready to go. We won't take him off LTIR till after the morning skate of the next game, and but our expectation is they'll be ready to play.
With that move coming, a couple guys, Dennis Inco missing today. Is anybody?
We're going to have to, but we have to do injuries first, and then we'll do roster moves next. So we'll push this back another day, see how healthy you are, because we have to have enough bodies to go.
And just in terms of the guys who weren't on the ice, any injury issues with like Barkov or the Stahl brothers?
Well, if you list all of them, there's a bunch of guys that I'm not worried about at all, and there's other guys that might be a game or two. They're not. There's nothing long term. We don't think at all.
Was Barkov somebody that's a candidate to miss time?
No, he'll be on full tomorrow for sure. I don't know yet.
Looking at it, I was talking to Carter, obviously, looking at 30 goals, the big picture. His shooting percentage through his entire career has pretty much been exactly the same. With that, what about his game and what did you see in him that kind of made you look at him and just kind of be like, I just want this guy shooting more?
Well, that's the strength. I mean, he's very, very fast. I think that we felt perhaps not necessarily overpassing. There was a way that he would move up the ice that would put him in a position where all he was left with was a pass, and there's a whole bunch of places that he could just get into holes and shoot the puck, so we would encourage him. So much of that is just being mindful and thinking of yourself as a certain kind of player, that you have a strength, and every movement that you make when you have the puck, it should be to do what you're great at. If you're a fast guy, you want to get into holes as quick as you can, and you're not looking to move the puck right away. You're looking to drive that speed. If you got a great shot, you got to make sure that you put yourself in a position of that. And some of it's just mental, and I think when you get a guy that's kind of had scratch and claws way into the NHL, and he's playing with good players now, you have a tendency to defer, right? You want to give the puck to Barkov, or you're going to give the puck to Benner, to Chuck. But your strength as a shooter, those guys will play off you. Just put the puck to the net.
Coach, when you get Anthony Duclair back, obviously game speed is way different than practice speed. How do you kind of navigate easing him back in there, finding what line maybe he works best, or number of minutes?
Yeah,
It's got to be a little bit of a process.
I won't be overly worried about minutes in a conditioning idea, because he's been skating hard for a long time. Like, he's going to be, in some ways, the fittest guy that we have, because he hasn't been worn down over the course of the year. Probably put him in kind of a three-hole role and let him go. Like, if he's going, we won't, because of where we're at this season, I'm not going to wait a long time. If he's going, then I'll get his minutes up.
With E2, like, you've talked about him before as somebody that not only you like now, but somebody
yeah.
like his upside. How important is it for a guy that young to have such a good two-way game?
Well, it just gives you, for a young player, that you can put him on the ice, and that sometimes is. If you take a young, really skilled player, but his defensive game's so weak, he's never going to get on the ice enough to really let his skill come out, right? You got to wait. But when you get a guy like E2's so strong in the defensive parts of the game, at the very least, he can play in the 3 or 4 hole right away. If he's got enough skill, then you can start hanging maybe more skilled players on his wing, and he can support that. So what you need eventually is the center iceman has to carry the line. And he, as a young player, is able to carry a line now. I think we could put another young player with him, and they'd still be very good. Or you could put a more one-dimensional player with him, and he could still be very good because he can carry the line defensively.
Is there anything you've seen from him this season that you can say this is better now than it was earlier on? Or,
Oh, his engagement by far. And that would be a transition from amateur to pro more than anything else. The game is so much faster and so much harder. Younger players will stay off the game a little bit, right? They won't get physically involved quite as much. They won't make their decision and go because they don't have the experience or the confidence necessarily to do that. So he's in on it now. He doesn't play off the puck. He makes his decision that that's the job I'm supposed to do more times than not. Far more times than not, he's right about that decision, and he's in and on the puck. So I think we would have would probably mention that idea. You got to be able to get on the puck. And the reasons that players don't are they're not sure if they're supposed to go, or they don't play hard enough. They haven't raised their level to know that you got to get after it and it's got to be physical and you got to win the battle every shift, every game. He's pretty advanced in those two things.
How high of a ceiling do you see for him?
I don't know. Like, there's no limits there because he does some really crafty things at times with the puck, and you say there's a really good set of hands there. He could play with two very highly skilled players on the wings and a version of Barkov in the idea that Barkov's a sulky winner. I'm not comparing the two. I'm not saying, but in the style of game, you can play Sasha against anybody's best, and defensively, there's a good chance he can beat you on his defensive game. He can hold, but he also clearly can score. E2 will be that kind of player. You won't ever be pulling his line off the ice because you don't like the match. You just let it run. It may not be you're going to run against him and McDavid all night long, but you're certainly not pulling that line off the ice because he's out there.
I mean, speaking of that top line with Barkov, they have won 5-on-5 point last 5 games.
Yeah.
And his last couple games. I mean, is there any concern with that line?
No, I think Barkov went 17 in 10 games, 17 points in 10 games, then he had an injury. When he steps back on the ice against Buffalo, I think he's going to be 100%, and I think that will change.
Are you looking forward to when you get Duke back, maybe sliding Lindell back to the center spot?
I'll consider it, but we just spent 10 minutes talking about A2 in the middle, and if I've got Bennett and I've got Barkov and I've got Stahl, then there isn't a driver for me to do that yet.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, guys.